I'm David Robertson. I'm the Vice President of Human Resources at Robertson Homes. It's in our blood. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. He built bus bodies for cities, and very successful. And then the Depression hit and the cities didn't pay him, and the company went under. And that always affected my dad, and he wanted to be successful. My grandfather ended the company with grace and kindness and everything else, and I think that's what spurred my dad and my uncle want to run their own business.
I'm Paul Robertson Jr. I'm the chairman of Robertson Brothers Homes. My dad was in the Navy. My uncle, for some reason, was 4F. I never did find out why he was, but he wasn't in the war. But he did build housing during the war, particularly like in Plymouth. He must have built 40 houses up and down one street for people who were working in the Willow Run bomber plants. Dad had managed to save 10 grand while he was overseas for 2 years, and with no expenses because we were living with grandparents. They each put in 10 grand. They went out to Royal Oak in Berkeley and bought, I don't know how many lots, 40, 80 lots. They were all left over from the Depression. It was interesting, there was such a market because all the GIs were all returning and they had nowhere to live, and their wives had all gone to their parents, and everybody needed a house. So they go out once a quarter on a Sunday afternoon, take 15 to 20 reservations, line them all up the next week to walk in, to sign their contract in the office, and that was their sales and marketing. So I went to work one summer for an architect after my freshman year after my senior year in high school. I spent one summer doing that. All I did was make coffee. I was never on the boards. I think I drew a few lines late in my career and decided that, this was bonded servitude these guys were in. I was going to be an engineer and a developer, not an architect.
I officially started at 14, and I started at the bottom. I was hired every spring to throw the straw that had been in the basement, the winter basements, all winter, and throw them out little tiny windows. Before we had egress windows, these are just little tiny windows with a pitchfork. I did an internship working for my brother, and I loved it. And I found out that my dad helped start the MSU program for home building, that I actually got a degree in home building. And my dad actually started it. And then I went down to Houston and New Orleans, and I learned how not to build homes. They didn't pay their bills, unethical, everything. I learned how not to do things. So it made me appreciate how we do business so much more.
I thought we were a pretty big success, certainly with Adams Woods, and then we did Bingham Woods, and we did the Crossings, and then we did the Heathers, and those were all the big projects. But it was pretty clear, we're pretty good at what we do. And if we just keep doing it and doing it the right way, we'll continue to be profitable and maintain financial security.
I'm Dick Russell. I'm Chairman Emeritus of Butzel Long, and Paul Robertson Jr. is a longtime friend. In 1971, I bought a house on Burwood in Beverly Hills, and Paul and his family lived down the street. And our kids instantly became friends. The Heathers, I can remember walking that site on more than one occasion before it was acquired with Paul, and we were arguing back and forth about the relative merits of the Heathers and another similarly sized site in that region, and which one ought to go back, which one really they ought to go forward with. And the Heathers won out.
Hi, Andy Millia. I'm president of Franklin Property Corporation. I got to tell you that I don't like following Paul Robertson at Planning Commission or City Council meetings. If you haven't seen him, there's nobody better than Paul Robertson in giving a presentation at a city. And on these two particular times, I was following him, and I just felt like he was the opening act, and I was just the also-ran. He was so charming and so smart, and so confident, and he just gave phenomenal presentations, and then I had to get up and kind of bumble my way through. But what gave him the confidence is he truly was passionate about the business. He's passionate about the specific project. He knew the details.
Hi, I'm Jim Clark with Robertson Homes. On or about May of 1990, I was working for a company called Dietz Organization. One of my projects that I thought was going to close with a non-refundable deposit fell apart. And so I had basically no income because I was on a straight commission basis. And I got a good call from a good friend of mine who I still do business with to this day. And he said, there's a company called Robertson and they're looking for a land acquisition director. So I interviewed with Paul and interviewed with another brokerage company. And after a series of 2 or 3 interviews with Robertson and with the other brokerage company, I made a decision after a lot of back and forth that I was going to go with the brokerage company. And Paul called me up after I told him I was taking the other job, and he says, no, you're having breakfast with me tomorrow morning. I said, well, no, I'm actually moving on. I'm taking another job. He says, no, first you're going to have breakfast with me, and we're going to talk. And I said, well, all right, I'll have breakfast with you. What does that hurt? After the breakfast, I was an employee of Robertson Brothers. You know, I think the successes are the projects that we've done, the communities we've done, and keeping the reputation that Paul Sr. Had an excellent reputation, and you've heard the story, and Paul will probably tell it, but 20 years after, going back and taking a house back because the foundation had fallen in, and piling it, driving piles through the roof of the house, jacking the house up, and then reselling it at a loss. So that was always if it's wrong, fix it, do the right thing.
I'd say Jim Clark running the company was another one. It was the first non-family member to do it. And he took us up a level. He had the huddle and things that we still do to this day, but he had the right moral compass. He just did the right thing.
Pivotal projects were the Heathers, which was what I came in on for in the last part of my career. Certainly the Willets was a pivotal project where we joint ventured with the billionaire Stephen Ross. And those were like image projects that really, that people would always say, oh, you did that, or oh, I know you because you did the Heathers. And then we did, a number of condominium projects in Canton, Pheasant Run and Links of Pheasant Run and Pheasant Run West. And so those were also, we started a foray, if you will, into a lot of business down in Canton, which carried us through a number of years. The biggest challenge for the company was going from 68 employees down to 6, and making it through the Great Recession, where as I say, if you build it, they wouldn't come. Making it through that, and then transitioning our business from building houses to managing properties and doing workouts for banks, and really doing anything we could for a fee for a period of 2 or 3 years until the market recovered. To Paul and David's credit, they said, look, we're not going to shut this down. You guys see what you can do to keep it alive, and they were very helpful in the process. But day to day, it was hand to mouth.
Darian L. Newbecker, President, Robertson Homes. I was hired in the fall of 2007, which was a phenomenal time to start in real estate. Essentially, we had to more or less take the organization apart to get it down to its roots, ultimately save it, and then ultimately start going it again.
We have the right people with the right attitude, and we got through when our peers did not. 2007 was a rough time, but it was remarkable. People working in rental offices, that wasn't their job. I mean, we just did whatever it took, and it was very impressive.
And in the good times, we shared notes about what people were paying for land and how much we were paying for underground pipe. And the bad times is, what was Comerica doing? What was Chase Bank doing? And we shared notes during the down times as well. And we all got through the down times, together.
Robertson always made money every year as an organization from 1947. Now I'm trusting Paul's telling me the truth, but I believe him, from 1947 to 2007. And then lost a tremendous amount of money, as everybody else did this industry, for about 3 or 4 years in the Great Recession. And then since then has made money. In fact, has made money on every single project from the Great Recession till today. And I honestly get the most pride out of the fact that we made it through that period of time to be here today.
You know what, once we got by there and we started really rolling, and as you know, I like to say, you know, Robertson Brothers is a 4-generation company. Just happens the last 2 generations didn't happen to be biological. They're people I chose. And I'm really, really, really proud of that.
Bill Bowman, Great Northern. I've known Jim through GN Developments, which does self-storage projects. I was happy when when Robertson Brothers started bidding higher, because it was great to recommend Robertson Brothers to do projects, because I knew it was going to get done, which is huge. And Clark Hill, who's the lawyers who I work with most of the time on this, Dana Abrams, I mean, she says the same thing all the time. She said she's happy. I know they're going to do it. I know they're going to do what they say they're going to do.
Hi, I'm Bob Doyle, and I'm our Chief Operating Officer. My first real memory of David was when I was in the field. David would come out to the field maybe twice a year, and he'd take me out to lunch, and he would give me advice. We'd talk about goals. We'd talk about things outside of work, and it was, you know, very inspirational, the kind of introspective thought and guidance. And he didn't have to do that, and I greatly appreciated it and found it inspiring. David was really key in me going back to school and getting my MBA.
I'm Jennifer Pettit. I have been controller at Robertson since 2021. I think the first memory of David I have is he came into my office and was asking for employee files. You know, would just come in and like shoulder shrugged, like didn't want to like intrude in what I was doing, but always like really respectful and was encouraging me about my organizational skills and how he can find everything.
Yeah, I'm Len Dillon, and I'm president of Woodward Birmingham Financial Group. We're a commercial real estate company. Paul is my adopted father. And I invited Paul to a Scotty Bowman luncheon down at Dearborn Hyatt. This is 100 years ago, right? He's got a long trench coat on, and I'm talking to Carol in my office, and here comes Paul walking quickly across the lobby of the hotel, and his coat's kind of spread out like this, you know. And the note I'm getting from Carol in my office is that my biological father had passed away. And when Paul showed up, showed up like he was wearing a cape. And that's really the role he's played in my life for the last 35 years.
So I'm Tim Loughran, I'm the Vice President of Land Acquisition for Robertson Homes. Jim will tell you that he taught me everything I know, which to some degree is true, but certainly it's been great working with Jim and learning from one of the greats in the business and understanding really what the Robertson way is, which I think is really important from our perspective as leaders of this company, really bringing in the history of Robertson and moving forward with that legacy.
Jim can bring people together collaboratively like no one else can. He's motivational without even trying to motivate, and was a huge part of the resurgency of the company.
Every day Jim came in, even in the toughest of tough times, he always came in with a smile on his face, with a cheery demeanor, and was always full of positivity, even when it was really difficult to be positive. So, I mean, I just remember every day feeling like, it felt like a comfortable company and environment.
The fact that the company survived through the 2000s, which a lot of companies didn't, and they did it the right way. They didn't just drop everything and try to get out of their obligations. And that's important, and that's really that legacy. Again, that's part of that long game. To me, that's what it's all about. Let's keep this thing going and continue on for another 80 years.
It's always the employees and how you treat the people. I think it's our ability to create unique communities. So we'll do things sometimes, like I said, with the townhouses or the detached condominiums, or building the mid-rises and infill locations, or buying school sites and doing them. Our ability to be creative with either the financing of the deal or the structure of the community, mixing product types, doing infill, and working with in a myriad of different fashions with sellers and buyers.
Whenever you go to the Robertson office, there's tremendous energy there. Everybody's buzzing around. And what I like about it is you can see that it's a team.
I like the growth we've had. We do not need to be #1 in the market. We don't need to do 500 homes, 1,000 homes, 5,000 homes a year, whatever it is. That's not who we are. That's not what we really strive for. So I think we're always evolving to stay with current trends.
Jim Clark and I, so you know, we have a hallway now of MBAs up and down the hallway, right? So Jim Clark and I used to say to ourselves, well, we got our MBA. We just got it one mistake at a time.
Construction and residential development is not for the faint of heart. So to make it 80 years in a regional industry where you can't just pick up and move to a different area really shows a testament to values and quality of homes.
I've never known Robertson to do a bad site, or you never shake your head and say, why are they doing that deal? Every deal made sense. So they're truly knowledgeable about markets, they're knowledgeable about the building process, and they're very knowledgeable and great at the sales process.
The family part of it, I think that's something that's really important. The fact that we've been around for 80 years, I think that speaks volumes, but we've really, even though we've, over time, we've reinvented ourselves, we've also really kept true to what the Robertson name is, more interested in what the long-term advancement of this company is than it is just making a quick buck. So I think the culture is everybody working toward that together as a team, continuing the legacy of the Robertsons and understanding how important that is. Because you don't just survive 80 years by thinking about what you're doing tomorrow. You think about the future and the long game.
I think Paul Sr. and Covert would be very proud of the fact. I think they would be equally proud of the fact they've made it 4 generations. I don't know what the statistical probability is of making it 4 generations, but I don't think it's very high. All while preserving the values of who we are as a company. We've been able to scale the Robertson way, and I think they would take pride in that.
General Motors had a saying that I stole from them and have used it most of my career. And that's, we sweat the details. I don't know if you remember that ad campaign. It was a long time ago, 30, 40 years ago, but that's what I think Robertson Brothers does. We sweat the details. I mean every single detail.
I want to say congratulations to Robertson Homes for 80 years of continuous, uninterrupted business and profitability.
Congratulations, Robertson Homes, on 80 years.
Congratulations on 80 years. It's amazing. I can't believe it's 80 years.
Congratulations, Robertson Homes, on 80 years.
Congratulations, Robertson Homes, on a wonderful 80 years.
Congratulations, Robertson Homes, on 80 years.
Wish you another 80 years of success.